You okay over there?
Fidgety.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Longevity Lab. I'm your host, Juliet.
And I'm Mackie.
And we have a fun show today. We had such incredible feedback from our last episode. It was one of the best podcasts we've ever put out, and I would not have thought that.
The prior episode was all about the top mistakes we see people make when it comes to nutrition.
Yeah. When you look at the graph on our podcast, it's pretty steady. And then, boom, it just jumps up on that episode. So,
but not only was it numbers-wise was a good episode, it was also, we got a lot of really good feedback.
Yeah.
And messages and comments and questions. And so, it's excellent.
So, guess we're cool without a guest. I feel like sometimes it's easy to hide behind having a guest to interview. But I'm happy to just have it be you and me and continue to do some of these episodes with just the two of us. And I enjoy just hanging out with you. So
I love
not
hanging out
that
with
we
you
don't
as well.
hang out all the time.
All the time.
The other night, after we did a really long run, remember how I was like, I need to just go to a store and wander around. Like I need to do something. And partially I wondered if that was to get away from you. And I don't mean that in a bad way, because we've just been spending so much time together doing like our work together, like having this company. I know that when I'm coaching with clients that I don't see you sometimes for hours in a day, but we're always in the same house. We love hanging out with each other. We truly are best friends.
Yeah, we're training together.
We're doing our training together, a lot of running together, like long days in the mountains. And then I was like, I kind of just need to go somewhere alone and wander around the aisles. I was so tired when I was in Whole Foods, and I was just wandering around in my pajamas, in my Birkenstocks and socks.
Sunday night at 9:00.
Yeah, like shuffling around the store, exhausted from doing a super long run that day. And I was sort of like kind of laughing at myself, watching myself, like just staring at the supplements, like just looking at different ones for no reason. What's this? Oh, how many milligrams of this is in this brand versus this brand?
This looks interesting.
What am I doing?
I mean, if we're being honest, that's the reason why I often go to the grocery stores.
I know
because
you love the grocery store.
I'm just trying to get away for a little bit.
You're gonna get away from me?
Not getting
and
away,
our family
but just
and the cats?
having some me time.
That's you time?
At Whole Foods.
We once ran into our friends there, and well, I think we've run into them a couple times there. And so they're convinced that we are there every single day and we like live there. So I joke that
we are there pretty much every day.
I have like a cot in the back of the store because I just live at Whole Foods. But yeah, so that's a little update from our weekend. We did a lot. We spent a lot of time outside, and I had to roam around a grocery store at 9:00 at night and come back with really random things. I came back with chia seeds, flax seeds, ice cream, supplements that I want to try.
All things that you wouldn't buy on a normal shop.
You know how people do
can't handle it.
Like retail therapy?
Yeah.
That is what that felt like for me. I spent like $85 on the most random things and came back and I was like, here, I got you ice cream. But I also got you chia seeds.
Chia seeds, ice cream,
and like a stress relief supplement.
Yeah, some gummies.
But because our episode about dumb nutrition mistakes that we see people make did so well, we thought that we would do one on top fitness mistakes that we see people make, keeping up with this theme of mistakes that we see. Stop making mistakes. No, I mean, life is literally all about
it's making mistakes and learning from them.
Yeah.
But the other reason why I wanted to do the fitness mistakes is because we've been doing a lot of talking about nutrition, supplements, mindset, a lot of things that are outside of the fitness purview. So I thought it would be really interesting to that's our wheelhouse is fitness and movement. So it's always fun to get back into that arena.
Yeah, definitely. So I figure we can jump in. There's so much to talk about with this topic. And I know you worked on creating this list, Mackie. So it's a big ass list. How many mistakes can people make?
We're not going to go through all of them, but
here's the first thing I want to say when I thought about this. No movement is a mistake.
100%.
But having intention and purpose can get you much further because most people have intention and purpose behind why they want to move.
There's some sort of goal, usually.
Whether it's longevity or they want to build muscle, they want to lose weight, they want to lose body fat, they want to perform better for some sport, right? So then mental health. So there are so many ways that you can slice this, right? And that's where it gets very confusing for people, because there's a lot of noise, similar with nutrition, right? There's a lot of noise with exercise, but there is also so much good data and science around how you actually get the job done for building muscle, building endurance, right? Fat loss. And so I would love to clear that up for people as we go through some of these mistakes I think people can learn a lot about.
Yeah. How can you find the quickest path from point A to point B instead of spinning your wheels and you're working out really hard for years and not seeing the results that you're after? How do you do it in a way that the science supports getting from that start point to that end point?
Well, as you say, spinning your wheels, that really brings me back to our days
literally
of us teaching
spinning
tons of cycling classes and seeing people who would take a cycling class every single day, 7 days a week.
7 days a week, 45 minutes a day, sometimes 2 a day.
Sometimes they would do 2 classes. So that's 90 minutes of pretty intense cardio. And then we would often hear the complaint of nothing is happening. My body looks exactly the same. Cardiovascularly, they got in better shape and they were able to be sustaining longer their efforts. But as far as the goal of weight loss or some sort of body composition goal was, they didn't see it. And that's where I would have to kind of intervene with people and say, you know, strength training is really important here, and nutrition.
Strength training. And the other aspect of that is moving your body in different ways, especially if you think about a spin class or an indoor cycling class. Your legs are in that fixed circle. Your hands are on the handlebar. Maybe if you're doing one of the more dancey classes, you're doing more with the upper body. But for the most part, most of the effort's coming from your legs spinning in that single circle.
Now, what if somebody was training for just a cycling event and needed to just be really good at just being on a bike for a long time?
Yeah, our friend that does 125-mile races, of course, they are going to need to do cycling.
Yeah. So that's where it's important that you decide like why you're doing something. I think where it gets tough is people want to enjoy their exercise. And I have heard from many people that they just love their cycling classes. They love Peloton. It's so fun. It's the thing that motivates them the most. And I would say that's
Get on their Cody ride.
Yeah. Yes. Right. The fun instructors and the really fun music. And I would say that can be a part of your exercise, but maybe it's not all of it if you're looking for a different goal. If you're totally satisfied with your fitness and you feel like you have your muscle is great, you're on your way to having a long, healthy life, which we know there are some other things that we need though than just cardio for that. But if you really feel like all your boxes are checked, then have at it. But I often find that that's not the case with people. So that's kind of one mistake I see people make, is just choosing one modality in fitness unless it's specific because of a sport they're doing. But even the best runners will tell you they don't just run.
Yeah, you need to mix in some strength training, some stretching, some mobility.
Cross-training.
There's so many different aspects. And one of the things that we talk about in the endurance world is looking at the different energy systems and how your body is utilizing and creating energy for you to perform. But beyond that, there's also so many different ways that your body can be can be, what's the word I'm looking for? Stimulated. So whether it's resistance on strength training, endurance, or power for short intervals or short sprints, or mobility and flexibility in yoga or just stretching. So there's so many different ways to move your body, which on the one hand can be kind of confusing, but also just having the variety there, just similar to how when you're eating, you want to have a variety of different colors on your plate. In your fitness plate, you want to have a variety of different modalities and different things that you're doing.
That leads me to another mistake that we see people make, which is too much variety.
Yeah.
Right? So today I'm going to do a Peloton class. Tomorrow I'm going to go out on a run. the next day I'm going to take a Pilates, then I'm going to go to an Orange Theory, then I'm going to go to a bar class, where every single day is a different form of exercise. Is it good to move? Like I said in the beginning of this, absolutely. So if your goal is just to be active and move your body, then have at it. But again, we hear from many people that they're not getting the results that they want. And I will find that's because they are all over the place with their fitness. They're not actually getting any progressive overload with the training that they're doing. So their body's not really getting more strength. They're not getting any faster. They're not seeing any more muscle tone. And that's because it's just too many things. They're trying to do too many things at once.
You've reminded me of my tagline when I was in the digital fitness world and making classes online. It was if you're moving, you're winning.
Yeah.
So that's always my baseline. If you are doing some sort of movement a few times a week, you're staying consistent with it, you are winning. What we're talking about here, though, is taking it to the next level of seeing progress, seeing results.
Yeah.
Right?
What was the staggering number that I shared with you earlier about hours of exercise and it adding years to your life?
If you do 270 hours a year of movement, that will add 3 years to your life. And that is independent of weight loss. So you don't need to lose weight to get that result. But 270 hours a year will give you 3 years of added length to your life.
I wanted to look and see you said 270 hours?
Yep.
So that's how much per day?
0.7 hours a day.
So, I mean.
So just about 45 minutes a day.
Yeah. We'll give you 3 years.
And that doesn't mean that it has to be intense. That could be a fairly light intensity yoga class. That counts, right? Strength training. Those are the types of things that with the consistency, it adds up.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I think that variety on the one hand is good so that we have some novelty. We keep ourselves enjoying fitness.
Yeah.
But I prefer to see people do this in phases where maybe for a few months they're focusing on a certain goal and building strength. And then maybe another few months we can focus a little bit more on building speed or power. I mean, you can do those things at one time. It's slower progress. I think that's important for people to understand that if you are trying to do everything at once, it's going to be a lot of slow progress in that sense.
Yeah.
There's a very trending kind of term going around of the hybrid athlete, which is athletes who are trying to be really strong and they're also trying to be able to go fast and long for distance. Yeah. So imagine someone who can do a really fast marathon, but they're also able to deadlift and squat like double their body weight or more. I think that this is misleading for people and kind of creates a little bit of misinformation in a sense of what's actually, I don't want to say that the humans aren't amazing in our capacity. I mean, we never thought we could do a sub 5 minute mile. And then the second that somebody did one,
sub 4 minute mile,
sub 4 minute, holy shit. The second that happened, other people started doing it. So there's this big power of the mind. So we're seeing more people who are able to do crazy things like squat and deadlift, crazy weight. And then they're doing 2.5 hour marathons. Things like that are happening. But I will also say that there are some performance enhancing drugs going around as well on the internet that from people who are influential that they don't disclose that they are taking performance enhancing drugs, not a supplement, drugs. Right. So I know that our listeners are not necessarily in that camp of trying to be first place winners. I'm not in that camp of trying to be a first place winner for anything, but I think that we're very influenced by who we see and what we think is possible. And then we kind of compare ourselves against that. We're comparing ourselves against people who are kind of freaks.
Yeah, they have a genetic disposition to be very athletic or very lean and ripped or whatever it is. And it's not realistic for everybody to try to live up to that really high standard.
And I think I've said it before with like even our lifestyle. We have a really different lifestyle than many people who have other jobs because because our job is health and fitness.
Yeah.
our day revolves around training and then training other people. And it's basically our whole life is this.
Right.
So we have the time and the means for it in a different way. And even with that being said, we're not over here doing a 2.5-hour marathon and deadlifting 500 pounds.
Not even close.
Not even close. So I just bring that up because while you might see people trying to do everything and they're getting it all done, it is a recipe for slow progress and also potential injury too.
I think the realistic way to look at that is to think of life, and we talked about this in one of our recent Longevity Lab newsletters that went out. If you're not subscribed to that. Check it out. We send out emails each week. But we talked about the seasons of your life, right? So just like a professional athlete will have an on-season and an off-season from their sport, humans, everybody, has a season of life. So maybe in one season, you are super focused on your job and you're just maintaining, or you're trying to maintain your fitness and just doing as much as you can. Maybe in another season, you're focused on running a marathon, and that's the main priority, and you're working on endurance, and you're working on running. And then the next season, it's wintertime, and maybe you want to build strength because it's cold outside, and you'll have more time in the gym. So maybe as you think about this hybrid athlete lifestyle, which I do think is great, because you want to have times for strength, you do want to have times for endurance, for power, for speed. All of these different things play into it. But I think it's really important to think about working on one thing at a time and having one singular focus at a time. So that way you can shoot for this result, get where you get, and then in the next season you move on to the next goal.
I think that applies a little bit more to people who are goal-oriented for performance. But I don't know if that applies to like a lot of the clients that I work with who just want to be fit, healthy, and try to live longer and have a higher health span.
Well, if that's the goal, and then you can tailor your workouts for that, right? So I think it applies to no matter what your goal is, even if your goal is taking care of your kids for this period of life.
Yeah, but do you know what I'm saying? Is you're saying building like speed and then building power. That's a little bit more to someone who is goal-oriented in that way, which I think is like us or some of the clients we do work with.
But let's say a longevity client who maybe has a little bit of weight to lose and they want to build some muscle, you'd still think of, okay, this season of the year, we're going to be working on building muscle more so than fat loss, right? So you still have different seasons. It's just different seasons.
Yeah, but I also think in this kind of way of looking at programming, if somebody really is just looking for something that is simple and kind of gets the job done, then we know that a lot of our programming consists of a little bit of cardio in the program. We do balance training, power training, and strength training all in one program.
Right.
But you're just getting smaller amounts of it because it's not like you're looking to build some big goal to get somewhere, right?
Yep.
So I think the theme is it is specific to what you're looking for, but you've got to think about that. I don't hate to use the word optimize, but if you're really working out for a purpose, which I think we all are, then going back to the spinning your wheels thing, we don't want to be doing that. We want to be making sure that we're following a plan that actually makes sense. And if you've been doing the same thing and you've gotten no results, like you're not any stronger, you're not any faster, right? You haven't seen any body composition changes.
And maybe you're okay with that. I mean, that was one of the things about that study, that 270 hours.
Yeah.
It's irrelevant if the person loses weight, they're still going to have better health outcomes because of maybe mental health, because of cardiovascular health and different things that come from
they
that
still
movement.
live longer, even if they don't lose weight. Yeah. The exercise and exercise is not about weight loss. I think 100%. We have to decouple that. I mean, there's even a new study that you were sharing with me 2 days ago, which was saying that there's some compelling research to show that you are not burning that many extra calories from exercise.
Yeah, it's a really interesting debate that is going on. So there's two sides of the story, and then I think the truth lies somewhere in the middle, which is always the case. But the one side, and kind of the way that we've thought about this for a long time, is if you burn 100 calories in your workout, you'll burn an extra 100 calories overall for the day, which makes sense, right? Then there's other
not
people.
like an extra, not 200, just the 100.
Just the extra. Yeah, if you burn 100 calories in your workout, you'll burn whatever your metabolic rate is plus 100.
Yep.
So then the other side of the coin is saying, and they call it the set point theory. If you burn 100 calories in your workout, your body, being the intelligent machine that it is going to then conserve for the rest of the day. So you might get you might be too tired to go for some extra steps, or you might just unconsciously do a little bit less fidgeting. And over the course of the day, it's going to make up for that 100 calories that you burned in the workout, and you're going to be back to whatever net zero.
Yeah, I definitely think there is something to this, given that we work with so many people over almost 20 years to see that they burn a shit ton of calories in the workout, and their bodies are not changing. They're not. They're having a very hard time with weight loss until the food changes.
Yeah.
And I think we all really, on a deep, deep level, know this, that it is the nutrition that will provide you with weight loss. In the beginning, if your body's not used to exercise, oftentimes we'll see an initial response of weight loss.
Yep.
Even if you're not doing much with your food. But given this kind of set point theory, which I think there's a lot too, because we see so many people who lose the weight and then gain it back. So with set point theory, there's more that goes into this, because they're looking at this a lot with all of these weight loss drugs that are on the market. There's been a lot of research done on obesity to kind of help guide this craze.
Yep. That
according to this journalist who wrote a book that I think I'm going to pick up called Magic Pill. I just listened to a 2.5 hour interview with this guy. And the podcast was Diary of a CEO. If anybody's ever looking for another really great podcast aside from ours, Diary of a CEO is a great podcast. And so this episode was all about the obesity epidemic and what's happening with these weight loss drugs. They talk about set point theory, in that it used to be thought that we all have some sort of baseline weight that each one of us has, and our body wants to maintain that weight. And then it was questioned, then how are we getting to this point where our bodies are able to just be getting larger and larger, right?
Interesting.
You go from 150 pounds to 300 pounds. What they're thinking is once the body is gaining that weight, that's the new set point that the body thinks it's at. So it's going to try to keep that weight now. So this is why it's easy to gain, in a sense, and very hard to lose.
Yeah, and that makes sense from an evolutionary standpoint. Our bodies, we store fat for the upcoming lean times, the upcoming famine that historically we would have had, except we don't have a famine anymore.
Yeah. So some of these weight loss drugs, there's so much debate on them, but there's a lot of pros, and then there are quite a lot of cons, right? But if we look at that and we say it's really hard for somebody once they get to a certain point to go back to where they were, and there's so many health complications that occur when you have obesity, then some of these interventions might really be necessary to have somebody have extension of their life, right?
Yep.
Off on a tangent there, but I think that's something important to think about when it comes to that set point, and even with exercise.
Yeah, so I think to get back to the study that I was referencing, so you had the two sides of the coin, right? One side of the debate says that you burn an extra 100 calories. The other side of the coin says you burn an extra 0 calories. This latest study is showing that if you do 100 calories of working out in the day, you'll likely then burn an extra 50 to 75 calories overall. So
not quite the full amount?
Yeah, so you will slow down. Your body will slow down for the rest of the day and at other times, and will conserve, but it's not all the way back to 0.
Yeah, and I think that that's so important for people to realize they cannot use exercise as a way to then eat more.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that I hate about some of the food trackers that are out there. And if you enter in your workout, let's say you work out and you burned 400 calories in your workout, it'll add 400 calories onto your allowance for the day, which doesn't really work.
But we also know
it's also
that
confusing.
Calorie burn in a workout is something we have no idea about, really.
Yeah, true.
Unless you are in a lab and you have a lot of data on you, how much muscle mass you have, your respiration. Like, there's so many things that would need to be tracked to actually understand how much energy you're expending when you're exercising. And if you're just basing it off of the number that's on your treadmill at the gym or on your watch or your heart rate monitor, that is just going off heart rate. And we also know the fitter you become, the lower your heart rate is, even when you're doing harder work. So my Garmin lately, because I've been really building my endurance, I'm now burning less calories in everything that I do, just based on the watch's data.
Yeah.
Right? But if I'm going faster, I'm actually burning more calories than I used to.
Right. You're still covering the same amount of distance that you would have before at a higher heart rate, right? So the amount of work that you've done is actually the same. So in theory, and you weigh about the same, right?
Yeah.
So in theory, if you weigh the same, you're moving the same amount of weight for the same amount of distance, in theory, it should be an equal amount of calories.
Yeah. So this is a tough one when we have this conversation of, then people will be like, well, then how much do I really know how much should I really be taking in? What's the exercise actually doing? This is where we want to look at the devices for things other than calories, because they really don't, they're bullshit.
Yeah.
They're not showing you, they're not showing you what your calorie burn is. It could be less, it could be a lot more even.
Yeah, it gives you a starting point.
Yeah.
And then there's ways that you can learn what your actual is based off of that.
But if you're out there and you're becoming more fit and you're noticing heart rate is lower, so your calorie count is lower in your workout, that doesn't mean you didn't have a great solid training session. Yeah. In fact, you have progress, which we're talking about is an important marker to understand if what you're doing is actually working with your workouts. Okay, so we talked about being all over the place with your workouts, trying to have a goal, trying to be able to kind of track and know, like, are you progressing? Are you getting better? Like, is your weight increased on that lift? Is your speed faster, right? Do you feel like you have more endurance and stamina? Those are all things that we can kind of look at to see if our workouts are working, because so many times I see people training and they're just not doing anything to get better.
What's your coach call it? Fast exercising versus training, right?
Yeah, and if you love to just be
nothing wrong with
fun
exerciser,
and go
I'm
out,
super happy for it. But if you're looking to hit a specific goal, that's when you need to start tracking your progress and looking at certain KPIs, so to speak, of what you're doing.
God, I hate that term. Sometimes Mackie and I will just talk corporate talk to each other because we don't have a corporate gig, but we've worked in corporate environments before. So it's like, hey, can you get that to me EOD? But I'll say it about something like making a grocery list or something.
Yeah. I think a good next mistake that we see, it's the sort of the exact opposite of what we said with not moving at all. Uh-huh. The next mistake when it comes to fitness that I see is working out too much. And
Mackie just looked at me. He gave me a side eye when he said that.
We're definitely guilty of this, but at times. But we've been actively working on taking a full rest day and not doing. One thing that we would do is, okay, we're going to lift on these days, and then we're going to do our endurance, our cardio on these days, and then we'll hike on the weekends. So that turns into 7 days of working out, and you're adding a lot of stimulus, you're adding a lot of stress on the body, and we're doing a lot of training. But in order for your body to absorb that training and take that training in, you need to give it some time to do it. You need to give it a rest day.
Yeah, you're actually either plateauing, just maintaining this level of fitness. And I know for me, this is a place that I was in prior to the last year or so, that I was just not getting any faster. I was just not feeling like I was making strides with my running.
Working really hard to not see any differences.
But I was also doing the same types of runs all the time. And and they were more in the moderate to high intensity ranges. And I was never actually doing the very low intensity, low aerobic training to build my engine. So I was really good at, I could go fast and sprint and run maybe like a 5 or a 10K. And obviously I got through different ultra marathons, right? But I did them very slowly. So I've been focusing more on building my stamina in order to do them a little bit faster this year. And I'm seeing progress in that I can now go faster with a lower heart rate. Whereas before, if I tried to go faster, my heart rate was really high and I'm just burning through fuel, and your body can only store so much glycogen. So then I was just kind of a carb burning machine, and I need to rely on my fat storage more, but that engine wasn't built. So I had to work on, and I'm still working on creating that. So if we think of like a pyramid, some of us are really good at building. We have the mid floor of the pyramid and the top end of the pyramid, but that bottom foundational piece, because a lot of us think it's futile to go really slow and not have your heart rate high, because I still think we really think calories aren't being burned.
Gotta burn calories, gotta burn maximum calories.
Like 110 heart rate's so nothing. It's not going to do anything for me. But in fact, it does a lot for your fitness.
We found that doing an hour at that 110, 120 heart rate it's pretty challenging towards the end.
And you mix that in, though, with high intensity throughout the week. It's not like you're only doing that. But like Mackie said earlier, we have different systems. But if you're constantly training the same systems over and over again, you're going to plateau, and you're just going to be staying the same. Or if you're overtrained, you're going to actually start to see less strength, less speed, less power.
Where's the rest day come into this?
Where does it come into this?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Well, that was my point.
Oh, you're just saying where does you're asking like me, like rhetorical. I thought you were really asking me.
No,
I'm like, on Mondays, Mackie, you know I've been taking Monday rest days. I'm doing good.
In general, how would you suggest building in a rest day?
Yeah, I would build in a rest day when well, it depends on if you're training for something. Like mine has to be Monday, just because I do all of my big runs on the weekends because I'm training for a mountain race, right? That's definitely not most people. So I would say, like, for most people, take it on Saturday or Sunday, or both. You don't have to work out 6 days per week. Like,
oh yeah,
really awesome to take Saturday and Sunday off.
This is mostly for the people that are working out every day of the week.
Yeah, and some people feel like
in some shape or another
they need it for their mental health. There's a little bit of a dependency on working out to regulate their mood. I totally get that. I am that person. I just love the way my body feels when I move. So I would say still take 1 or 2 days of rest. Take 1 full day of real rest. That doesn't mean you can't go on a walk. Doesn't mean you can't stretch, but just giving yourself time to absorb the training, to metabolize everything. And I would say that every day, if you are working out 6 days per week, it should not be 6 hard days. It should be a combination of some lower intensity and some high intensity. I think a few days of high intensity is more than enough. You actually don't need as much as you think. This is the thing that's really important, especially if you've built your base and you've been working out for a long time. I bet you, for those listening who have done that, if you back off a little bit and you're a little smarter about your training and putting in really good effort in the few days that you're going to put in really big effort, you will start to see better results than you've ever seen in the past. And I have seen this time and time again with backing off and spending the 3 or 4 days in the gym, really focusing on pushing the weights and then letting your body get the recovery the next day, and then taking that day in between and then pushing the weights, that you'll see crazy muscle growth and results.
Yeah.
And I think that, what were we reading or watching recently, that you really only need a very small amount of sets per body part to just maintain your muscle.
There are studies out there. I think we might have heard this from Renaissance Periodization, Dr. Mike Israetel. He talks about the amount of stimulus that you need, and the studies show that you only need 2 sets over the course of a week per muscle group to maintain muscle. I could be off on that, but it's very little.
Even if you did 1 set, they said, you could still see so much maintenance. So for those who get really scared of going on a vacation or like taking more than a day or two off, nothing will happen.
Nothing happens.
Like your body will maintain muscle. I mean, I was able to maintain all of my muscle and ran a 50-mile race, and I'm about to run a 100-mile race. And I don't think that mark my words here, guys, but I don't think I'm going to really lose much muscle, if at all, any of the muscle, because I'm still lifting 2 to 3 days per week and just hitting just the right amount of stimulus to keep what I've built on my body. Now, I'm not building anymore. I'm not building strength. So that's on pause, but the maintenance is there because I want to be able to have it with me because I worked hard on building it. So
yeah, we know that muscle, 2 parts, muscle strength, but also muscle mass on your body are two out of the top 3 indicators for longevity. The third of the top 3 being VO2 max, which is probably number 1, but having muscle and having strength are very important when it comes to longevity and living a long health span.
Yeah. So that's sort of for the people who have a real consistent workout routine.
Let's get tactical for a second. People who have an inconsistent or are not currently working out, what would you say are the minimums for getting started with strength training, endurance training, and all this?
Well, I think that you don't have to do all of those things at one time. I think layering them in is a really good start. So I would probably start, if I had to pick one that I think just gives you such benefit, I would start with strength training. And I would do that twice per week to begin. And then if you love it and you want to add a third day, because 2 times is the minimum that you really are going to see some strength gains and be able to build some muscle, I would add in a third day. And then after you have that routine down for at least a month or 2 months, then I would layer in some cardio on top of that. And it doesn't have to be a lot. You could start with just 20 to 30 minutes a couple times per week. And then we build from there.
Yeah.
Where it just becomes like, oh, I can easily do that. This is a part of my routine. I'm strength training twice. I'm doing cardio twice. And then maybe we can up it to 3 days of strength and 3 days of cardio. Now, I know if we're thinking that's 6 days in a week, you can do cardio and strength on the same day. So you don't have to work out 6 days. You can do a 30-minute cardio and a 30 to 45-minute strength on one day and then have it be every other day. You can really just plan it out whatever works best for your schedule.
Yeah.
You can do cardio and strength at the same time on every single day. If you only want to work out 3 days per week and you want to take 4 days off, that's okay too. Like there's a lot of ways that this works for people.
We've seen a lot of people over the years get a lot of results from doing it that way.
Yeah. And I also think that we have to take into account non-exercise activity, which is very, very important. And that's just movement in general. So if you are only going to be working out a couple days per week or a few days per week, then I would this is for everyone regardless, but I would really want somebody to be walking and just getting movement in their everyday life. Steps are really important.
Steps are important.
Yeah.
All right. What's your next mistake that you see when it comes to fitness?
Neglecting proper warm-ups.
Ooh. This becomes more and more important every year.
As we get older, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in my 20s, I just would jump right in. And I just didn't have to worry as much about getting my body ready. The older I'm getting, I feel like sometimes I'm warmed up after 30 minutes. I'm finally warmed up.
There's a funny meme video that's been going around, and it says like working out in the 1980s, and it's montages of Sylvester Stallone and Ivan Drago like running around, chopping wood, running in the snow, and then fitness in 2024, and it's like people foam rolling and doing mobility work and stretching, but the warm-up is real. You need to do it.
Well, the warm-up is going to prepare you, especially if you're trying to make some strength improvements and you're trying to progress with weightlifting. It's really important if you're doing that. If you're just doing like lighter weights, easier stuff, I don't think it's as important that you have to spend so much time doing specific warm-ups. But if you're deadlifting, you're squatting, like those kinds of compound exercises, I think that it's very important that you do some activation. And it also doesn't need to take 30 minutes. I think sometimes we see these
exactly my point.
mobility experts online, and it's like, wow, that's a 30-minute mobility routine. I don't have time for that. I think 5 to 10 minutes is perfect.
Yeah, I think the best, especially for the compound movements that we're talking about, the best warm-up for those is the movement itself with either body weight or just the bar or just a couple light dumbbells. That's going to activate all of the muscles that you need to do that specific movement. So doing a set of 6 to 10 reps at a light weight is the ideal warm-up for that. I would say it's also important to do some sort of light to easy cardio, some walking before you get into that, and then there can be some specific activation exercises that we recommend, but for the most part, the best thing you can do is that actual exercise.
Yeah, so I would say that when Mackie and I program for our clients, we have a warm-up section on the app, and most people will see that we have like mobility. So they'll start off with a little bit of cardio just to warm up the tissues, get the heart rate elevated. Just also mentally prepares you to jump in to strength training. And then you'll see some mobility on there, just kind of getting your movement patterns prepped. And then you might have some activation exercises that are specific to the lifts that you're going to do. But all in all, typically around 10 or so minutes.
Yep.
And then you're going to be doing your workout for about, depends on the person. But I would say if it's an hour workout, then you've got about 45 minutes, 50 minutes of your workout. And that's how it goes.
That's how it goes.
You know, it's how strength coaches do it. There's a reason it's done that way, because it just gets consistent results, and it really prepares you for your lift and makes sure that you don't have any kind of injury, because with injury, you can't stay in the game as long. And we want to stay in the game. We used to have a trainer at Unite, and shout out Austin. And he always said something that I loved. And he was like, listen, I'm not trying to win the game. I'm just trying to stay in the game as long as I possibly can.
Love that.
And I was like, that's right. That is exactly it. We take the ego out of it, and we're trying to just, and I think with the warm up, your ego gets in the way of you warming up. I would challenge your ego if you're someone that says, I don't want to have time for this, or this isn't burning enough calories, this isn't getting my heart rate up. I think what we just shared with you about the calorie burn should clear that up for you, that working out has nothing to do with that.
Yeah. Yeah. And one other point I want to make on the warm-up is that there is an inverse relationship to the intensity of your workout and how long your warm-up should be. So if you are going to do a relatively low intensity workout like yoga or an easy aerobic bike ride or something like that, you need a little less warming up than something that's more intense. So intensity can come in the form of heavy weights. It can come in the form of power, doing jumps, doing speed, intervals. Anytime you have that really short, intense burst of energy being expended, then you probably need to do a longer warm-up to build yourself up to that.
How long are my warm-ups these days?
Like an hour. You had an hour 10 the other day, right?
I had an hour and 10 minutes of running warm-up, guys, because my run was so long and I had some intervals in the middle of that. So I had to just prepare my body for over an hour because the distance was so long. So that goes to show you.
Yeah.
I think we could all do 5 or 10 minutes and stop bitching about it. And I am saying that from direct experience of the mistakes that I have made for many years with avoiding and ignoring the warm-ups.
We just want to get right into it.
But now I see the warm-up as the workout. I don't see it as separate. I think that's helpful mentally, like so psychologically to think of it.
It's part of the workout, but it's also
not separate.
For me, the reason why I like to do the warm-up and I don't miss a warm-up anymore is because it just makes the workout feel better. Mm-hmm. I don't have that first rep where it's like, oh, there's that feeling of like my body is stiff. Mm-hmm. Everything's warmed up, ready to go.
Okay, we got just a couple more here. We're going to try to wrap up the show within an hour today. But I've got improper form on here, which is kind of an obvious for people of mistakes that we make. But when it comes to form, I think that there are different schools of thought on what form should look like And this is where you have to work with a coach, and you also have to know your own body. And I will use a squat and a deadlift as a good example here for this, because there have been dogmatic approaches to how you're supposed to squat and deadlift, right? I remember when I first got into training that there was a lot of emphasis on keeping the feet straight ahead, hip width apart, with your back very rigid in a squat. Yes. That is some cray-cray advice that was touted as being super safe. Yeah. But we understand now that the spine is meant to have flexibility. We understand that people have different hip joints, that people have different statures. Your body type is going to really inform your movement patterns.
Yeah, the way the head of your femur, the top of your leg, sits into the hip bone can really determine on which way your feet are turned.
Yeah,
which way you're going to feel more comfortable.
Some people might do well with their feet turned out and facing straight. They have similar depth. Other people, you tell them to put their feet straight and their squat is half of what their squat could be if they widen their stance and have a little bit more turnout in their feet. And as far as keeping the back really rigid, we also know that a slight forward lean with bracing of your core is not going to hurt your back. So I just bring this up because form is a bit controversial, and there is not some perfect form, especially for these bigger lifts. But form is what works for you and what feels comfortable for you. And I think this is where working with a coach, even if it's working with coaches like us, where we work with people all over and it's virtual, but we see people on video, we critique their form, we do movement assessments with people to figure out what is your best deadlift going to look like? What is your best squat going to look like, right? Because it is very different for each person. With Mackie, he has to deadlift with a slightly rounded back. And if this were me 10 years ago and I saw that, I would be like gasping and trying to fix you. Yeah. And what we've learned is your anatomy, that is the good deadlift for you.
That's where my body is strongest. And if you look at the top power lifters when they're doing their world record deadlifts, they all have a slightly rounded back.
Very, very true. Now, we're not saying that you should go and round your back to lift the heaviest weight possible, because we do know that there is a relationship with creating a more neutral spine position and having bracing in your core. That's super important for you to not hurt yourself. But, you know, if you're just like, I find it impossible to do the movement in this way, then I think that you should chat with somebody like us or someone local to you about, you know, and a strength coach too. I do not mean to knock personal trainers. I'm knocking myself at this point. But as personal trainers, I'm glad that I really got some more education in strength and conditioning as I've progressed in my career, because a lot of personal trainers do not have that education like a strength coach has, like in collegiate sports and things like that, where they can speak specifically to these lifts. Yep. Group fitness instructors don't have it a lot. So just make sure whoever you're talking about understands that there's different form for each person.
There's no one way to do everything. And our strength coach, he'll always say that, yeah, you want to keep your back neutral, but neutral is a range.
And also try keeping your back neutral, like super upright in everything you do in your life. Like that actually isn't conducive to daily living. You're going to round your back. You're going to bend over. You're going to have different flexibility occurring in your spine. It's meant for that.
You might fall. You might have to reach for something.
Yeah.
You want to prepare your body for life's things.
For life's things. All the things.
One more thing I wanted to bring up about that, and this is sort of a trending topic when it comes to form, and one thing that we heard for many, many years was don't let your knees go out past your toes. And there's a guy online, knees over toes guy. This information is really interesting because, yes, allowing your knees to go past your toes does create a little bit of pressure on the front of your kneecap. But what they're finding is that this knees over toes positioning, yes, it does create stress, but just like lifting weights, that's creating stress on your bicep or whatever exercise that you're doing. That stress can actually strengthen your knees over time. Mm-hmm. And he's had incredible results going from in high school, the doctors told him that he needed a knee surgery to now being able to dunk a basketball, all from just doing these strengthening exercises. So it never really made sense to me because I always knew that when I squatted, my knees were going out past my toes. So it was always something that I never really paid attention to, but I did parrot it a few times. But the idea being that they don't want people's heels to be lifting when it's in a squat. But the whole idea of these like end all be all rules that you cannot do, it's just not true.
They're just not true. Yeah. For everyone. They're just not true for everyone. Right.
Right. That's what I meant. Yeah.
Because I might have a client who has really messed up knees, and I'm not going to give them knees over toes because they're at a certain point where that would be dangerous to do.
It's unique to everyone.
Yep, exactly. But I found great benefit in doing it myself. I've been doing these like sissy squats. My knees are my toes. I've been doing all this stuff, and my knees feel a lot stronger than they were. But again,
it's great for mountain running when you're running down the hill.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely depends. Well, Becky, we're coming up on time, so I'm just trying to look on if there's any other ones. We talked a lot about these. I'm going to kind of go down the list a little bit just
Why don't we, we'll do a rapid fire?
Yeah, like rapid fire cliff notes, though, of everything we talked about. Okay, so we talked about not being consistent, right? We talked about too much variety or not having any variety, right? We want to find that sweet spot. Neglecting strength training and building muscle. So that kind of goes with the just doing one modality, like just cycling or just running. Yep. It's really important that we build muscle.
Especially for longevity.
Mm-hmm. Not warming up, improper form, neglecting nutrition. I think we've touched on that a little bit of just you cannot rely on the exercise as being the thing that's going to help you with weight loss and fat loss. It will help you with body composition changes, building muscle, but the nutrition has to be incorporated in this. We talked about overtraining, how oftentimes we will plateau or go backwards if we are doing too much. And if you're someone who does like to work out a ton, we can just talk about backing off on the intensity. So you still get to move a lot, but maybe you just aren't doing as many intense sessions.
Yes.
And giving yourself a rest day is very important. And just liberate yourself from being stuck in the gym all the time or having to work out. You don't have to do that every single day. It's nice you can have other things that occupy your time. Okay, this is one that I think is obvious, but using the same program for too long.
Oh, yes, that was a good one. I like that.
Yeah. So while we want to do a program for a certain amount of time, like not having too much variety is important, right?
Yeah, we repeat exercises. That way you can see, okay, over this last 6 weeks period, I've increased the amount that I can lift on this particular exercise.
We don't want to be doing the same routine for years to come. I mean, I've definitely seen this in the gym, especially with like older guys, and they're doing their like chest press, bicep curl. Like they've got
the bro split.
Yeah, this like same thing, the same rep scheme. The weights are always the same, right?
Yep.
And they look the same and they feel the same.
Yeah, which might be fine for them.
For maintenance, right?
Maintaining.
Exactly.
But if they're trying to do a different goal, if they're wondering why their lifts aren't going up, then that's why.
Yep, exactly. But you can see lots of progressions throughout the eras of your life. So I think it's important to focus on that. I mean, I was able to grow my ass like crazy this winter. I was just looking at pictures and that was my goal. So I focused on hypertrophy of the glutes and holy crap, it worked.
It works. It's possible.
It's possible. I did like 4 months of just trying to build up those muscles to see. It was just sort of like a fun, honestly, it's not even that I think that aesthetically these big asses are like the thing we should all have because bodies are trending, but I was just genuinely curious about if it was possible to grow the glute muscles, and there's such a powerful muscle, especially for my sport, and I was able to do it. So
for me, I always had turned off glutes. My glutes wouldn't fire as much as my hamstrings, so my hamstrings would take over, which I was able to get away with for a long time up until I tried to do a marathon in 2018, and then all of a sudden my hamstrings were getting blown out because I wasn't using my glutes at all in my running. So had to learn how to use the glutes.
Yeah, glutes are so important for power. Too much high intensity interval training. So we did touch on that today as well. That was one that I fell into that category big time. I think you did too, especially when we were doing group fitness classes.
Yep.
Everything was high intensity. And it's really nice when you get to work on the lower aerobic base, and it's chill, it's fun, and you can look forward to the high intensity sessions and give it all you got.
Right. Lower aerobic base, but also looking at strength training and taking a minute to 90 seconds in between sets, which has recently been studied and shown to be one of the more effective ways to build muscle. So if you're looking to build muscle,
this
90
is a mistake.
seconds.
This is a good one. The not resting between sets.
Right. Yeah.
You are not working hard enough. If you do not have to take any rest, and I do not mean to call you out, and you might be like, it's hard. It's not hard enough. And this is a mistake too. Not working hard enough. Man, I wish I could just I want you to YouTube, everybody. Renaissance periodization on, right? Is that the
Renaissance
channel?
periodization.
And watch these guys and girls strength train. And not that I'm saying that we want you to bodybuild. And believe me, it takes a lot more than even what they're doing to get to where they're at. So don't think that these workouts are going to make you the Hulk. That's another mistake in your thinking, because it doesn't work like that. And especially us women, we don't have enough testosterone. And a lot of these women can be on sometimes performance enhancing drugs like testosterone. But watch the intensity of these weightlifters and what it looks like when a set is done, because they've got maybe 1 or 2 reps left in the tank, or they're going to failure. Most people are not really going there. There's a lot of fear of pushing ourselves to that point. But once you start to get more comfortable with that discomfort, you will see a lot of good change.
Yeah. And we've seen that an RPE of 6 to 7 to 8 is really the ideal, because you don't want to go to RPE 10, which is all out failure.
That's rate of perceived exertion.
Yep. Sorry. Rate of perceived exertion of 7 or 8 means that you could probably do 2 to 3 more reps. That has been shown in the studies that is the ideal place to be when it comes to building strength, building muscle, but at the same time, not pushing so hard to failure that you could potentially get hurt.
Yeah, if you're pushing to failure every time, then you do give yourself more of a chance of having injury. On the bigger lifts, we're talking about deadlifts and squats, not as much on some of the lat pull down or the dumbbell shoulder presses. Those you're a little bit safer with, I would say, going towards failure. But on the compound lifts, I think you got to be a little more careful.
Yes, I would agree with that. Yep.
Yeah, and for most of our clients, they're working out from home or they're using a lot of dumbbells. But I want to encourage you to push yourself where you do need a minute or 90 seconds recovery between sets. Yeah, if you're able to just go, and this is not circuit training, this is not high intensity interval training, that is a different kind of workout, and that has a time and a place. But we get a lot of clients saying, I've been doing these classes for years, and I'm just not seeing any results. I have not built muscle. My strength isn't really improving, and I don't look any different. So weight training really does make your body look different, but it requires some patience and a different relationship to the feeling you get when you work out, because you're not going to be breathing heavy like you are in a circuit training workout.
Yeah.
You're going to feel more of a central nervous system response where you might be a little shaky, or your muscles, again, or they're going to that real fatigue point. That is different than taking like an Orange Theory type of class. I think that just goes into mistakes we see, people overlooking progressive overload. And that's exactly what we're talking about. You're not taking into account that progressive overload, really giving your body that stimulation that you need to change.
There's really 3 ways that you can improve your lift. So for any particular exercise, you can go up in weight, you can do more reps, or you can actually just do the reps better. So spending more time in the eccentric phase, or just spending more time with better form.
Tempo training is a big one.
Yeah. So those are the 3 ways that you can improve on any given exercise.
Yeah. And then the last one that we're going to leave you guys with, and we've been hammering at this in multiple ways today, but is over-reliance on cardio for weight loss is a mistake. And this goes back to this kind of set point theory of just burning calories. You'll find a way to eat them. You'll find a way to chill more. You don't have to do more. Like, more isn't going to give you better results. And in fact, just being smarter about your training and more precise about your training is often what you really need. And then making sure that you're not overlooking the nutrition part. And if you're not working out as much, then your nutrition will improve. I have found this with myself and many other clients. They don't have the cravings.
You're cutting back.
Yeah, they don't have the cravings. They don't have that mental chatter that goes, oh, I did an hour of cardio extra today, so that means I can have this cookie. All this permissive kind of behavior will die down if you aren't doing as much. I sometimes we'll hear from people, I went away on vacation and I lost weight and I wasn't really working out, or I was injured and I couldn't lift weights for 2 weeks or do cardio. I had to take a little break to let my injury heal, and I lost weight finally. It's like, okay, you were less inflamed. You didn't have as many cravings. That's a big part of the themes of mistakes today. So it's just, I think that a lot of people make mistakes with that part. They really heavily rely on exercise for weight loss, and we have to separate them.
Yeah, so if you feel like you're making one of these mistakes and you have any questions about it, feel free to reach out. We're happy to answer any questions you have on this. We also offer our UltraLife Coaching, where we address all of these issues all in one program, and we love having a chat. So the best way to get started with UltraLife is to start with a free strategy session where we talk about where you are and where you want to be, and then we devise a plan to help get you there.
Yeah, and even if you walk away from that session not being one of our clients, but just having a better understanding of how you want to plan your week out with all the things you like to do. So maybe you're someone who likes tennis and you like to take this class, and you also have a Peloton in your basement. Like, all of these things can work, but some strategy around them and more specificity can really help you dial things in and see better results. So yeah, we love talking to people.
Link to the strategy session in the show notes. Please give us a review, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all those things.
Yeah. If you're not watching this on YouTube, go to UltraLife Co. on YouTube and please subscribe to our channel.
Yep, we have the Longevity Lab podcast up on YouTube.
You can see us in our podcast studio. I never know how to end these things. Yeah, I got a client right now, so I got to go.
All right, we'll see you later.
Bye, guys.